So in yesterday's game against the Denver Broncos, the Raiders lost more than just the actual game. They ended up losing their quarterback, and unfortunately, Antonio Pierce confirmed what we had heard yesterday, and that was that Gardner Minshew is going to miss the rest of this season. So the Raiders will go into the next portion of this season. There's about 6 games left. We'll go into this portion without our starting quarterback, which isn't really a bad thing at this point, truth be told. I think I'd rather see what the other quarterbacks on this roster can kind of do as we end the season, as opposed to just going forward with Gardner Minshew, because things weren't really working out. But the interesting thing we do have to think about for the rest of the season is, what do the Raiders look like for the next 6 games? Do we have a quarterback that we can keep on this roster? And then do we have an offensive coordinator that is worth keeping going into next season? You know, a lot of people don't think Antonio Pierce is going to be the Raiders coach, but from everything I've heard, from I think what we're kind of seeing as well, I would find it hard to believe Antonio Pierce is not with the Raiders next year. Now, not everybody's going to say go out and hire Ben Johnson, but the truth is every single Cowboys fan, every single New York Giants fan, every single Saints fan, every single fan of every single team whose head coach is ultimately either going to be fired or already has been fired is saying the same thing. They all want Ben Johnson as well. So what that means is Ben Johnson, it's not like there's only 1 or 2 jobs available. There's going to be 8, 9 jobs for Ben Johnson to ultimately choose from. I don't think Ben Johnson's coming to the Raiders. So as we go forward, it's probably going to be with Antonio Pierce. And the Raiders just got to figure it out as we go forward, right? You got to figure it out. You got to put it together. And we got 6 games to really see what we could ultimately do. And as Antonio Pierce confirmed that Gardner Minshew is out for the season, he also told us that Aidan is officially back. Now, we're not 100% sure if Aidan will actually play going into this next game against the Chiefs. We play on Friday, so it's technically a short week. But I'm excited to see Aidan run this offense a little bit, because I think one thing that I've seen from Scott Turner is that the offense is actually a lot better. I know points-wise, we're not putting up 40 points, but I think the offense is actually a lot more efficient. Against the Dolphins, we drove downfield more than we had in any other game, right? Against the yesterday as well, right? You look at that game yesterday, we drove down more than we've ever driven down in any of these past games as well, right? Against the Broncos have a really, really good defense, but we still drove down on them multiple times. And I think a part of that is because Scott Turner just does a better job with the offensive design. And I think if you guys watch the tape, you would also agree with me that the quick game's better, the spacing's better, the design, and when you're kind of calling specific plays, all of it is just a lot better. Now, we're not having success running the football, but I think that's more so of the talent at the running back position as opposed to the play calling. I also do think that, when you look at what we have at quarterback, this is also kind of hindering us a little bit in terms of the red zone production, which is ultimately forcing us to kick field goals. But I think generally speaking, Scott Turner is a lot better. And although we've had more success, I want to see what Aidan can do with Scott Turner, because I think there's a real chance that going into next season, is not guaranteed we draft the quarterback. It's not guaranteed that our coaching staff changes. Like, none of that is guaranteed, right? And to me, I want to see what Scott Turner can do with all these various quarterbacks. And there's a chance that we're going to end up seeing Aidan get the start. Obviously, AP put it out there that he's going to rely on the doctors and the medical staff to clear Aidan and he won't just, force it. He'll kind of let it be. And if we don't get Aidan it'll be interesting to see who does end up going in there. I think Desmond Ridder is obviously going to be the guy. But we also have Carter Bradley, who's another guy that, in the past, Carter Bradley has looked good, right? In the preseason, he looked really, really, really good. And I understand preseason is much different than the actual regular season. But I would love to watch Carter Bradley out there as well, especially since Scott Turner's worked a lot with these quarterbacks, right? Especially the backup guys, right? The guys that got to develop and kind of learn the NFL. Scott Turner's worked a lot with those guys. So I'd be excited to see what some of these other quarterbacks could potentially bring to the Raiders. I know most people are going to say we don't need to win any games. It's understandable that we don't need to win any games, but we do need to show improvement. And as a team, we need to know what we have going into next season. What if Aidan comes in this upcoming week against the Chiefs? And what if O'Connell throws for like 500 yards and like 7 touchdowns, right? And then for the rest of the season, we go undefeated and he's putting up monster numbers, I know that's probably not going to happen, but what if it happens, right? I think the Raiders just got to really know what they have. At the same time, what does Michael Mayer have? Like, is Michael Mayer even worth keeping on this roster? And if he is, let's see what he has. Let's get him the football. Let's let this guy go out there and kind of do some things, right? The Raiders got to figure out what they have. The right tackle yesterday struggled a lot. right? DJ Glaze did not look good yesterday against the Broncos. And we got to figure out if he's a good right tackle or not. We got to figure out if he's the guy. So I'm excited to watch Aidan O'Connell come in and potentially run this offense, see if Scott Turner can maybe have a little bit more success with Aidan as opposed to Luke Getsy. And we'll see what the Raiders kind of finish this season as. As I was watching the Raiders and Broncos game, the Raiders looked arguably the best they've looked all season, on the offensive side of the football specifically. Although we have injuries, although we have a new we have a new set of wide receivers with Devontae gone, I still feel like the Raiders looked a lot better today than they've ever looked in the past, which is kind of crazy to think because we have so many injuries, offense, defense. We're super banged up, but we're still very close to potentially beating the Denver Broncos. And obviously the defense has to get right, which probably won't happen this year, but I think what I've seen on tape from the Raiders is a team that is still willing to play and willing to win. And I think you have to give credit to Antonio Pierce for that. Your best players right now, Maxx Crosby is out there every single game going 100%. And in yesterday's game, he had a monster game. Maxx Crosby had the most winning reps he's had in any one game yesterday against the Broncos. And some people might overlook that a little bit, but it's not just Max. Robert Spillane is out there making plays. Jack Jones, although he gave up some bad plays, was also out there making plays. Antonio Pierce has these guys playing in meaningless games, essentially. And these guys are giving it their all as well, right? So you got to give Antonio Pierce a little bit of credit as well as some of these guys on the team for really going out there and putting it out there. And there's one guy that's actually starting to make some plays that I kind of want to talk about as we finish this video. Tyree Wilson is a guy that a lot of people have written off. And I've written him off slightly as well. Although I'll give him until the end of his third year to really see what this guy has or not. It has not looked good up to this point, right? It did not look good last year at all. He looked absolutely terrible. The preseason, the first couple of games, it didn't look good, right? But I think we're at the point where, we're starting to see more from Tyree Wilson, right? We're seeing more plays from this guy, right? He's making more plays. He's getting after the quarterback a little bit. Very, very, very solid against the run. In fact, I think Tyree Wilson is one of the best run defenders in the NFL. Definitely one of the best, probably the best defensive lineman we have in terms of run defense. Tyree Wilson's becoming a problem out there defending the run, right? And I know it's not perfect, but I do like the fact that Tyree Wilson is starting to show some flashes because as we kind of continue to go forward, these are the things we got to figure out going into next year. When Malcolm Koonce comes back, we got to know where he's at health-wise, and then we also got to figure out the rotation with Koonce and Tyree Wilson. To me, Tyree Wilson had arguably his best game yesterday against the Denver Broncos. He did have a sack, which was really just a designed stunt, right? And that stunt got home. But he also had a lot of negative plays defending the run, right? He had like a 5-yard play where he snipped out an end around. The Broncos didn't block this guy. They thought that, hey, we can just run right around him, and he won't see the play, and he saw it, and he blew it up, right? And to me, we're starting to see flashes from Tyree Wilson a little bit. He's resetting the line of scrimmage. He's getting in the backfield. He's not making every play, but he's making it tough, and he's being disruptive. And I think that's all we can ask for a guy like Tyree Wilson, right? Especially a guy that's been kind of written off by a lot of people. I think for the Raiders, we got to figure out what we have in some of these other guys as well, right? And Tyree Wilson had a really, really good game yesterday. So I just wanted to kind of give him a shout out because I think he kind of gets overlooked. He might not ever be Jalen Carter, right? Jalen Carter's probably already one of the top 2 or 3 guys at that position. But Tyree Wilson still looks good, right? Or at least he's looking better. Now, I'm not saying the guy's going to be a superstar or anything like that. I'm just saying it's noticeable he's getting better. And hopefully he can kind of continue this as we go forward. And then hopefully going into next year, he becomes an absolute force for the Raiders. These guys that are bigger, like the way Tyree Wilson ultimately is, guys that are power-based in college, it takes them longer because in the NFL, everybody's strong. But if you have that type of power that Tyree has, and you're able to put it together, right? You adjust mentally to the speed of the game. You put it together. You get those snaps. You'll ultimately be able to have success, right? And with Tyree, we're starting to see that a little bit. And yesterday, he only played 30 snaps, right? And he still had like 7 or 8 really, really good plays. So I'm excited to see what Tyree Wilson can do, right? Obviously, we'll kind of figure it out as we kind of go forward. The Raiders got the Kansas City Chiefs on Friday, right? That's going to be an interesting game as well. Let me know what you guys think, man. Thumbs up, subscribe, and I will see you guys next time with another video.